This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, real MVPs, because we're starting that, Sean. Remember, we're going to start that. Real MVPs, because you guys are real MVPs, checking out Most Valuable Podcasts. Welcome in to the Primetime Podcast. Ricky Widmer here, and joined, I'm just going to say it, as I always am, because it seems like you're always here now, Sean Anderson.
Hey.
And Sean filling in for Brandon yet again. Brandon's like, hey, I'm going on vacay for the 4th of July. I'm like, cool, you told me with enough time I could get Sean in studio.
Happy Independence Day, y'all.
Happy Independence Day. Happy Independence Day week, as we're recording this on Monday. And you're here for a special time because Brandon, he was here for the bottom half of the Big 12. Sean comes in for the big boards. We talking Oklahoma today. We're talking Texas today.
It wouldn't be the Primetime Podcast if we were to talk about the primetime teams in the Big 12.
The primetime teams in the Big 12. So we're looking at the top half. West Virginia, we're going to look at TCU, Oklahoma, Texas, and I'm forgetting one, Oklahoma State. That is who we're going to hit today. Before we get into everything, a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. Number one, if you want to help support the channel more so than you guys already do, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast, where you can help us a little bit more than just watching each and every day. Also, go on to iTunes, give the Primetime Podcast and all the podcasts at MVP a 5-star rating, and then type a little something about why people should check out the podcast and what you like. You can get our shirts down below in the description from our store. Store is also at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can also catch MVP each and every day. Let's kick things off. Let's start. The way we do it is when we pick the order, for those of you who are new, we start from the bottom. So for this, we're going to start with the 5th place team from last year in the Big 12. Let's start with the West Virginia Mountaineers. And the thing I am going to start with is, the thing I want to ask you is, how high for you? Because neither you nor I are actual West Virginia Mountaineer fans. I got so many comments in the Texas Tech video calling me an idiot just because I said Texas Tech might be able to upset the Mountaineers this season. How high for you should the Mountaineer fans be on the excitement level with Will Grier and everyone they got coming back for this season?
I mean, if you look at it, you got to be thrilled. I mean, because obviously he had the injury down at the end of the road, and he wasn't able to play in that Oklahoma game, got injured in that Texas game, and obviously wasn't there for the bowl game, and it really showed. I mean, you lost 3 straight to end the year, and I was looking at their season beforehand. It was like they couldn't get going, and they finally got that 2-game win streak against Iowa State, Kansas State, 2 teams that were pretty good last year, and then Will Grier has his injury, and he's not able to finish out that Texas game. You got to be thrilled, though, because, I mean, he looked fantastic last year. 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He's a guy that can run. He's a guy that can throw the ball, too. He's a very accurate passer. Obviously, we're not talking about his future right now because, it's not dependent on what he's going to do in the NFL. He might not be an NFL quarterback just because of his size, only being 6'2", but for a college game, he might be able to dominate this year, especially with the ability of him, throwing the ball. I think he had only one game where he was under 300 yards passing. You got to be excited if you're a Mountaineer fan.
Well, and for me, it's not just Will Grier's. They also have coming back. They have big wide receivers coming back. They also have their big wideout is David Stills. They always got Yandi Kajesti, probably said that name wrong, at left tackle. He's a big returnee for them. And Grier actually this offseason, little quote here from Atlon Sports, said, "We had a pretty good offense, but we're going to fine-tune some things and be really good this year." And to me, they have to, because the thing that concerns me, and this is why I said I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Texas Tech, I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Iowa State flips the win that the Mountaineers got last year into a win this year, is because you look at it, every game except for Kansas that they won, Texas Tech was only an 11-point win. Baylor, they only won 1 conference game last year. That was only a 2-point win. Then you had Iowa State. That was only a 4-point win. Kansas State, that was only a 5-point win. Very close games. And that, to me, shows like, hey, teams like especially Iowa State, where you're going to be going to Ames this year, could an Ames Iowa State team flip it because it was so close last year?
But you need to look at the games that Will Grier had. I mean, he was the leader, he was the catalyst for this West Virginia team, and you think he's going to get 1 year better because he's going to be working with the guys that are coming back, and he's just going to progress as a quarterback. This was his first year last year as a West Virginian, and now he's going to be finally into that offense for a full year. He has the experience being in the Big 12, and you look at those games that you mentioned. It was Texas Tech, it was Baylor, and I think the other one you mentioned was Iowa State. In that Iowa State game, 20 and 25 passing, 316 yards, 80% completion percentage, and 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. In that Baylor game, he dominated Baylor, 26 for 37, 70% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And that Tech game, 32-41, 352 yards passing, 78% completion, and 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. I mean, he was accurate, and when he was on, he was dominating those teams. And those teams really don't have massively great defense, especially Texas Tech. I mean, Texas Tech is known for...
It's the Big 12. Yeah. We don't play defense.
I mean, they're known for... Well, Iowa State, I'll give credit to Iowa State. Iowa State had one of the better defenses last year in the Big 12. But, especially Tech. I mean, Tech really has been known for their defense ever. It's all about that offense with the Red Raiders. And he went in and he torched them up. And you assume that he will be able to not only do that again, but even be better. So he might be able to go into Texas Tech. He might be able to face Texas Tech and have that type of game, but even more efficient, maybe even close to 80%. So, they're going to be tough schedules. I mean, the Big 12 and, well, really the Big 10, because there's only 10 fucking teams in it. I don't understand that whole thing. It pisses me off. Same thing with the Big 10.
Well, the Big 10 has 12, and the Big 12 has 10.
Yeah, it's stupid. But it's something where you look at the Big 10 or Big 12, sorry, the Big 12, that you assume that Will Grier would make those advances. It's just how much will the defense be able to help him, especially going up against these large powered offenses. Because you look at this West Virginia offense, this is going to be better than what it was last year. And Will Grier last year had one of the best passing seasons for a West Virginian, and you think that's going to carry over to this year. So if you're a West Virginian fan, you got to be excited about what Will Grier's going to be bringing to this team.
Well, and Big 10 fans are going to call me wrong because after I said 12, I was like, wait, I thought it was
14.
More
too.
It's 14. We added Rutgers and Maryland, and that put us at 14 teams now. But to me, the biggest, the offense is, because I'm going to go back to the point you made where how great, like you said, the Baylor game, Will Grier was great. I feel like this team, if they're going to be successful this year, it's going to be how far can our offense take us? Because right now, the defense, you got really nothing. In my mind, you have nothing to be excited about. Like when I've been looking at articles about the Mountaineers, the quotes that I see is, oh, they are cautiously optimistic on defense. And when you have this spring, when you have a guy in Quandarius Qual and your second middle linebacker in Brendan Ferns, who is a former 4-star recruit, both go down with ACL injuries, I'm looking at this team and I'm going, all right, we got to put basically we're at the poker table. I'm putting all my chips in on the offense. Because if this offense can basically score a ton of points, average about 45 to 50 points per game, and we can blow people out of the water, then the West Virginia Mountaineers will be good. But if that defense cracks, then this team could be in some trouble. And I look at the schedule for this year. Texas is going to be tough. You get them in Austin. Oklahoma's going to be tough. Good thing you get them at home, but still, Oklahoma's going to be tough, even with Kyler Murray without Baker Mayfield. You play Oklahoma State on the road. You play Iowa State on the road. You play Texas Tech on the road. Although I will say about Texas Tech, them losing their quarterback in Simonak is a bigger loss for them than you guys had. So that one, although it's on the road, it's not as big as a game, I would say, as Iowa State. I wonder if one of those teams, Oklahoma, Texas, maybe even more of them, TCU I'm not even mentioning, but that's a home game for the Mountaineers. Their schedule's not going to be as easy as it was last year because some of the key games will not be in Morgantown. They'll be on the road.
For sure. But again, you still look at this offense and the development that we will have. And the biggest thing for West Virginia will be injuries because, I mean, you even look at last year, Will Grier goes down, they lose all 3 of those games. And you even talk about already getting off to that rough start with the linebackers going down as well. So the biggest thing about West Virginia will be staying healthy. And I think if they're staying healthy, yes, it's going to be road games, but they will at least be in every single game. They might not come out of the Big 12 with a great record, but I think West Virginia fans will at least say, all right, our boys gave everything they had in these games. I don't think West Virginia is ever going to be blown out in any of these scenarios.
No.
They might lose to an Oklahoma, a Texas, an OK State, but they will be in every single game because I think this team will be competitive. It's just how much will they be able to get out of Will Grier? And I think the reason why we keep coming back to this is just football in general is a quarterback's game. And if he's able to take the Mountaineers and push them over that threshold, then this team might be atop the Big 12. But again, they have a tough schedule, especially with most of their big games being on the road. And you even look at the start of the season with their non-conference. You have Tennessee at a neutral site, and you also have NC State, two tough opponents, especially that being Tennessee's first game under a new regime.
Tennessee's going to be interesting, though, because
I'm
not many people are expecting them to be anything special.
And I'm saying that talent-wise, West Virginia will be favored in that game, but it's how much will that new regime be able to fire up the troops, really be able to get Tennessee going, and maybe there'll be a whole new culture change that will see a new Tennessee team. Again, West Virginia is going to be favored. It's at a neutral site, but Tennessee, it might be a trap game just because you might be overlooking and seeing, hey, Tennessee isn't the powerhouse they used to be back in the 90s, but we'll see what the new coach brings there. And then NC State last year, they were consistently a team in the ACC that, they aren't a great team, but they have the ability to pull off upsets. They beat Clemson before. They usually play, NC, Duke. They usually play teams very tough. So that's going to be one at NC State that might be tough to start off your season. And then you obviously mentioned you're playing at Texas Tech, at Iowa State, at Texas, at Oklahoma State, and then obviously you ended out in Morgantown against the Sooners. But the biggest thing for West Virginia will probably just be health. And if Will Grier can stay healthy, then the Mountaineers will have a shot in pretty much every single game. I
mean, and with their non-conference, I'm going to say it's easier this year than it was last year because I get what you're saying with Tennessee. Pruitt coming in, how much can he get that culture to that Alabama style that he wants to bring it? Kind of Kirby Smart when he comes over to Georgia from Alabama. I'm expecting Pruitt to try to do a similar thing at Tennessee. Not expecting them to win a lot of games, but you rarely do in your first year. But NC State, although they were really good last year, I think that game this year, it's on the road, might be a little bit, like fractions of a percent, easier for West Virginia than last year opening the season against number 21 Virginia Tech on a neutral site because VT was coming off of that year where they had just lost to the Trubisky in the ACC championship game and they were looking to do great things in the conference. West Virginia is going to be an interesting one because, last year, 5-4 in the conference. And it was funny, like I told Brandon last week when we were doing part 1 of these previews. I'm like, you look at it, Texas, who we'll talk about next, they were at 5-4 in the conference. West Virginia at 5-4, Kansas State at 5-4, Iowa State at 5-4. The middle was right there. It's kind of like relating it over to the NBA, kind of like how there were 3 teams in the West, all at 17 games back in the playoff standings. Then you had the top, then you had the bottom. I don't expect West Virginia to fall below the 5-4, but for you, what are you saying should be the expectations for West Virginia? Just to be a top 3 team in the conference? Are they going to be a team that's going to strive and make the conference final, or are they going to be a team that becomes a sneaky playoff kind of sleeper team?
I don't know about playoff team, but definitely possibly. I think the expectation for West Virginia fans should just be, win as much as possible. And I think if they win as much as possible, again, that will probably be, Big 12 title game.
Yep.
But again, like you mentioned, it's going to be a bloodbath in the Big 12. I think the expectation should just be, again, where you finished last year or higher. I don't think this team's going to fall off. I don't think this team's going to, face any major setbacks this year again, unless, obviously injuries happen again and strikes this Big 12, this Mountaineer team. I think that's probably the biggest thing for them. But looking at it, Oklahoma got worse. Even though Kyler Murray is one hell of a prospect, we haven't seen him play. Baker proved it, and Baker absolutely dominated the Big 12. You're losing the biggest aspect on that team in Baker Mayfield, so they're most likely going to be taking a step back. You look at OK State, they lose Mason Rudolph, they're going to take a step back as well, so you assume that you'll be able to take a jump up, but then like you also mentioned, Iowa State, Matt Campbell, he's got another year under that team, and you think that that team's going to probably shoot up to the atmosphere. I think they can be a top 3 team and possibly make it to the Big 12 title game. I don't know about playoff team, though, because I'm typically not high on Big 12 teams in general. The fact that Oklahoma had the year that they did and made it into the playoff was good for them. But I think with the way the SEC usually falls out, they're probably going to get 2 teams in the playoffs this year. You look at the Big 10, they're probably going to get a team, and if USC is able to have a great season, then they're probably going to make the playoff as well. Or even Clemson as well. I forgot about them. So I don't think there is a favorite right now in the Big 12. If you had to pick one, though, it'd probably be Oklahoma. And even then, I don't know if they're a playoff team. So I think playoffs might be out of the reach. But West Virginia can definitely be in that title game.
In order for West Virginia to make the playoff, they have to do exactly they have to do exactly to me what Oklahoma did last year, if not better. They have to win every single game, or they can only lose one, probably that North Carolina State game. Because, yes, Iowa State at the time, early October, unranked, upset the Sooners. The Sooners had a big win at the Horseshoe in Columbus. That was a number 2 team. That was the whole Baker Mayfield planting the flag
and it was
midfield,
the way they won, too.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of boosted them. And, of course, like I said, they only lost one game up until that Georgia game in the Rose Bowl. How I see this season ultimately working out, I'm actually going to backtrack that Texas Tech game. I will say West Virginia will win that one only because of the question at quarterback. I think Cliff Kingsbury with Texas Tech gets fired this year. That's how bad of a season Texas Tech might have. With West Virginia, I see wins up until that Kansas game. So you win everything up till then. Iowa State's a question. Baylor, you get a win, and then it's basically what do you do with the bottom 4? And like you said, Baker Mayfield's no longer in Oklahoma. Yes, they have Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray is no Baker Mayfield, although he is good. Oklahoma State, they are also losing not just a really good quarterback, they're losing 2 of their best receivers in Marcel and Washington, not going to be there this year.
You got to give credit to Mike Gundy, though. I mean, Mike Gundy always puts out a good team.
It's all the mullet. The mullet finds the quarterbacks and kind of puts them in that shooting offense, that high-flying offense. TCU's always good every year. Peterson's got them going. Every say it, Peterson. Coach of the Horned Frogs. He's always got them going each year. And then the big question is, what are we going to expect from Tom Herman and the Longhorns this year, and that one being on the road in Austin. So really it goes up until October 6th. Expect win for me. And then it's like, all right, you got one win in those next ones, that's for sure. But what are you going to do about the last 5 of your 6 games? And is it good? It's basically nut up or shut up, basically. And are they going to be able to win those games against the tough Big 12 opponents?
Yeah, I agree with you about up to October 6th. They're probably going to be heavy favorites in 3 of those games: Kansas, Texas Tech, and then Youngstown State, obviously.
Yep.
Then you look at the Tennessee game. I think they should win that game. NC State, that's going to be possibly a difficult one just because it's
on the road
at NC State, but I think West Virginia will still be favored there. And then Kansas State, again, they had a good season last year, and Snyder always puts out a good team too. So they are at least a competitive team. So that one's going to be tough. But I'll still agree with you. Also 6-0. They'll lose at Iowa State, so they'll be 6-1. They'll beat Baylor 7-1. I think they go 2-2 then in that stretch from Texas, TCU, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
So 9 wins on the year.
I think 9 wins on the year for the Mountaineers, and I think that'd be 3 losses. Iowa State, and then two to the end of the season. So
it'll be because they play a total of 9 conference games, 12 total games, so 9-3.
9-3, and then it would be 7-2 in the conference. No, 7-3 in the conference.
Yes.
6-3 in the conference.
And that would be better than last year. They were 7-6 last year. Well, 6-6. That's 7-5. That 6th loss was their bowl game last year. So they were 7-5 before their bowl game last year. You'd basically put them with 2 more wins in the conference, or 1 more win in the conference, and 2 more wins overall. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below about Will Grier, about this Mountaineer team, Mountaineer fans. Let us know how excited you are for this year, and what do you expect from your Mountaineer team in 2018.